everybody to pile in here, but that's okay. We'll just start going anyway. The hell with everybody. So you keep leaving people in the dust. You know, you talked a lot about fasting for years. You went all the way into like dry fasting. Talked a lot about keto. Talked a lot about these a lot of different types of diets over the years. And then you dropped a bomb on everybody with sugar fasting. People got all fired up, all excited. And now you even tweaked that. Why do you keep tweaking things? Because some people view it as you just like switching from one thing to another. But I view it more as that it's like an evolution, like you're doing something and it's your body or the people that you're helping not responding quite as well as you would like. And then so you're making adjustments. It's not just you switching from one thing to another. That's kind of how I see it.
So my whole YouTube channel from day one has been based on it's shortcut fucking gimmicks. And like I see this on YouTube, like I started, so the first thing I ever talked about was the prolonged water fasting. Okay, that like it's the biggest fucking gimmick known to man, and that got me on TV. You know, this is what people are looking for nowadays. They're looking for fucking shortcuts. And this whole sugar fiasco, sugar diet, and sugar fasting, what it actually ended up doing is leading guys like myself that actually grew up in a time before the internet back in the early 90s, late 80s, when I think that North America specifically was at the pinnacle of dieting advice. It brought me all the way back there. It brought me back because there's a few things that came good from that where, you know, dropping the fat through the floor. So now I have conviction with that. Yanking lean protein out of your fucking diet and restricting protein is fucking ridiculous. Like risking muscle loss is fucking retarded. So there's that. And like you come from that same background. So this is going to be a good talk because, you know, you're a little bit older than me. And what happened was, like you say, I coach a lot of people and I started seeing like people are always looking for gimmicks. And I'm not going to lie, I'm the king of fucking gimmicks. Okay. And you know, and then you see all the other YouTube channels too, because that's what sells. And really anything, there's no replacement for a low fat, prioritizing lean protein, whole foods, carbohydrates diet. There's no fucking replacement for it. And that's what this whole thing brought me back to now. And it also made me refine my coaching because now I can just coach fat people, no gimmicks, no fucking calorie counting. I'm getting them even off the scale because all I do is I just coach them on food choice. If you show me your food choices, I'll show you where you're going to get. It's as simple as that. You know, and this is the thing. A lot of stuff back in the late 80s, early 90s with even the bodybuilding culture. Like, you know, you've heard of Susan Powder when she was pushing low-fat dieting. Like, they would have learned all that shit from, like, late 80s female bodybuilders, and their diets were rock-bottom fat, lean fucking protein, and carbohydrate, and they were ripped year-round, and obviously they had tightened shit up before a show. And I started doing a lot of research into that shit. And if you want to give me a minute, I could even talk about some of the politics that really led to this whole fucking high fat movement in the late 90s. And it's funny because you have experience with wrestling. You know, your brother, obviously he was in the WWF back in the day, and fucking I was a kid watching fucking WWF. But it was very interesting. I started digging deep, and I got a lot of followers who are like in their mid 40s, early 50s, and they're like, holy fuck, cool. Since you started just promoting low fat dieting, lean protein, I even have a lady that's 70 years old that competed in bodybuilding in the 80s, and they just lost their way. They just lost their way. I only had to talk to her for 5 minutes. I'm like, low fat fucking diet, lean protein, clean carbs. You know, even the refined sugar doesn't fucking need to be there. You don't need to add sugar to your fucking sugar sources that are whole foods. Like, this is fucking common sense. So anyway, I knew some of this history, some of this politics. It had to do with Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon. So you had the low fat craze, which people that were eating low fat were getting results. And really, you could actually say that Menser started really promoting lower fat in the bodybuilding community in the late 70s. And then the early 80s, 90s bodybuilders were fucking 20 times better conditioned than the guys back in the day. And even like even Serge Nubret, he actually got fucking whacked out of competing in a bodybuilding competition with Arnie, and he was fucking shredded on like zero fat horse meat, right? Like, so anyway, I don't want to get on off topic there, but like with Vince McMahon, so he was getting charged with distributing steroids to the WWF wrestlers in 1992, right? And so he had to go on damage control. And this is right when low fat, it was low fat, right? You had Susan Powder showing food choices, and she was more catering to mainstream. And you had the 80s bodybuilders, they're all fucking like diced, low fat dieting. And so what happened is Vince McMahon hired a guy, you know this shit, Mauro Di Pasquale, who was basically the medical director for the WBF Bodybuilding Federation. And so he hires him to go on damage control, and one thing led to another, and they created the anabolic diet, which is it's gimmick as fuck. And then they started testing that fucking high fat diet on some of those wrestlers, and they just got soggy as fucking hell because it was a gimmick to fucking try, because you know WWF's supposed to be family friendly, right? It was a gimmick to fucking say, oh, these wrestlers are doing this anabolic diet, which is essentially high fat during the week, carb cycling on the weekends. And then that led to, snap into a Slim Jim, right? Like, it led to this whole fucking high fat bullshit that's confused everybody. And you even go back to, you're going back to Atkins. So Atkins was deader than dead since like 1972. It was dog shit. And Atkins ends up revising the Atkins diet in 97. And now you got the Atkins diet blowing up. And then you got like the .com bubble. And then you got people, that's when the diet religion really started. So now all the fucking shit, I'm trying to dig up old VHS tapes of old school dieting where these people, when we're talking about the fat intake in that diet, the only fucking fat that's in that diet was in the lean meat sources. And I've been running, like, you can run, and this is what all this, because coming from bodybuilding shit, they never added fat to that diet, whether they were bulking, cutting, at maintenance, they were never adding dietary fat to that diet. And so anyway, that's what all this shit led me to. And now I'm literally going back to the way I was dieting. I was doing this shit when I was 12 years old. I literally cut for bronze gloves when I was fucking turning 13, and I knew intuitively to cut the fat out of that fucking diet when I was a fucking child. And I used to do the same for the powerlifting meets, because if we're talking muscle mass preservation, nothing is going to give you the best fucking body composition over a low-fat diet, lean fucking protein, getting it in, and carbohydrate. And then if you want to get really anal with shit, guys cutting for the bodybuilding shows would be even yanking the carbs down and even bumping the protein up even more, right? For the short term to get just diced. So like, that's where I'm at. So my whole YouTube channel up to this point is fucking bullshit. Along with everybody else, anybody that's pushing fasting, like fasting's got a place if you're sick. But I know you always bring this up where things have like, what's the word you use? Not merit, but there's just no place for any of this yo-yo dieting bullshit, Mark. It's all just fucking excuses to still have a bunch of fucking dietary fat in your diet. And even the calorie restricting, all of a sudden you have fat in that diet, your metabolism goes to shit, which doesn't happen when you knock the fat out of that diet. Like, dietary fat fucks your metabolism. It fucks your metabolism. And that's why a lot of these people on a carnivore diet, and like, I just get on a rant on this, but like, even the fucking fatty meat, the carnivore diet itself, the way it's sold, is man-made as fuck. And they try to make it, because there's no fat in fucking nature. You didn't have any of this fat volume. Like, post-industrial revolution is when it really blew up, because you needed tech. But if you go to where I live right now, and you had to live off the land, we're talking wild game meat. We're talking wild chickens, deer meat as lean as fuck. We're talking berries, vegetables, peas and carrots, and fucking potatoes. Lean for fucking life. Clean dieting. There's no fucking fat out there. There's no fucking ribeye steaks. Even the oils, like the nuts and shit, like avocados are like fucking exotic. There's just no real fat out there. Even the lions, them saying, oh, these cats eat all this fucking carnivore fuck. Those cats are eating lean fucking wild game. It's lean as fuck. And the reason those cats can pull it off and get enough glucose is because they're eating so much lean meat that they're fucking swinging over a lot of that protein into carbohydrate from gluconeogenesis. That's what's going on. And so now I'm pushing clean fucking dieting, cut the fat right the fuck out, prioritize that lean protein. I even tell the fat people that literally eat the lean protein till there's no hunger. And then backfill to kill your sweet tooth with carbohydrate. And those ratios will be completely intuitive until you get lean, like where you're at, where you're eating a certain amount of protein till you're pretty much done with it. And there'll be an upper limit where you'll just quit eating. You don't got to give them macro splits or fuck all. And then you'll just end up eating carbs to make up the calories because you're getting so low on body fat.
Yeah, I'm getting jacked over here, which is great. I mean, I've already been in shape for like a long time, but I'm noticing some cool subtle differences over the last couple weeks since even just the sugar diet, like just opening up the vault to be able to eat more carbohydrate has been something that's amazing. I want to touch upon a couple things you said. One, you talked about losing muscle mass. Muscle mass and bone density, those are two things that are not great to mess with. Those are things that like we really want to cherish. Maybe for somebody that has built muscle mass over like a long period of time, like myself, maybe I could afford to lose a little muscle here and there because maybe I could get it back very quickly if I just focused and trained a little harder. I also do take PEDs, so that's a huge factor in there as well. But for most people, like you're really fighting and scraping everything together that you have to gain extra muscle. Somebody that has, 140 pounds of muscle mass on their body, for them to get to 142 or 143 muscle mass wise is a real bitch. Like it's very hard to do. So I think that is a good priority, a good place to hone in and focus and then say, how do you avoid muscle loss? Well, one way to avoid losing muscle would be to not be in a caloric deficit all the time, like we see a lot of people doing. Another way would be to give yourself enough of the amino acids because you're breaking down protein and breaking down amino acids when you train. And so if you're going to be doing that, you need to replenish that. And so you eat enough protein. How much is enough protein? I guess each person can try to figure that out for themselves, but 1 gram per pound seems to be a decent spot for most people. If somebody really wants to gain, maybe they get more aggressive with that. I've talked to a bunch of bodybuilders recently, and they could have 3, 4, and even up to 500 grams of protein in a day. That these are guys that are stepping on stage and they're professionals, so they just feel that they need to push that to that extreme limit. And then also they are using PEDs, so those are other considerations. But you get the idea. Is like you can really take in a lot of protein. When it comes to carbohydrate, an interesting thing, like if you consume a lot of fat and you go over your calories or go over your energy for the day, it's pretty easy to get soft and it's pretty easy to kind of get a little fluffier. It's easier to gain body fat. But in the case of carbohydrates, I'm not going to say that they can't turn into fat because we know that they can. And the body can do all kinds of really cool stuff whenever it needs it. The body can just store things or utilize things as energy just as it sees fit so you don't fucking die, But in general, those carbohydrates that you're consuming, if you're not consuming them in the presence of fat and you're not in some sort of crazy, you're not having, 1,500 grams of carbohydrates every day when you weigh 170 pounds, then those carbohydrates most likely are not going to turn into body fat. And what are we trying to do with diet? We're trying to control hunger and we're trying to get some sort of satisfaction. I think that's actually part of the pitfall of the sugar diet was that there wasn't that much satisfaction in some of the foods because they're not that satiating overall. They don't hit the spot as opposed to when you have a lean piece of meat. Like if you have chicken breast and some rice and maybe some teriyaki sauce or something, man, that really fills a gap, tastes really good. It's exciting to eat. Maybe there's some vegetables thrown in there too. And I think the sugar diet was kind of empty. I still think there's some cool principles in there. I still am fascinated by the idea of the, protein fasting and stuff like that. I think there's something kind of neat in there, but it's very experimental. and you're kind of doing it at your own risk. And like I said, you might be sacrificing some muscle, you might be sacrificing some bone density, and so those are things to really consider. And then again, I think you just backtrack from there. How do I avoid some of that? And the way you avoid some of that is to bring in some other nutrients, bring in some of those proteins and stuff like that.
So here's a good point, like what you're saying about like the muscle. So what happened, the trend, things got so fucking crazy. I get people that are getting a hold of me, and they're just, it gets fanatical, and they were gonna lose muscle like fucking crazy. And here's the thing with it doesn't matter if you're eating 10,000 fucking calories of fucking straight sugar a day. If the protein's not there, you're losing fucking muscle. And here's the other fact. So all that bullshit talking about FGF21, it doesn't mean a fucking thing. Because when the protein is fucking not there, you are losing muscle. It doesn't matter if you're eating 100,000 calories a fucking day of sugar. Now
I wanted to say something real quick in there. Our muscle mass is our storage of protein. So we don't have an extra storage space for protein. And then the same thing for calcium. Our calcium is stored in our bones. So again, these are things that I don't think it's okay to experiment with, just like we did. I think it was cool to run an experiment. And then you kind of start to find out. I actually noticed some definition in my legs was just kind of missing for days on end. And I was like, that's really weird. I haven't seen that happen in me before. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm starting to, I don't know for sure. I started to lose a lot of muscle or anything like that. But I was like, I'm not cool with this. I want to make, I want to kind of reverse out of this and start going in a different direction.
So and when we're talking about even the calories, it's interesting what your body actually needs. So people just get this fucking mindset where they're trying to eat in a way that allows them to eat the most calories. And say, for example, I was talking about the sugar fasting, how I felt I was, getting away with a crazy calorie count on the day and not gaining any actual weight. It doesn't matter if I was eating 4,500 calories when I'm literally fucking catabolic as fuck, not as satiated as if I ended up just eating a pile of lean protein and a bunch of carbs and the calorie count added up to 2,000. 2,000 calories with proper fucking food is way better for you and way more satiating than even if it's 4,000 calories of sugar. And that was the problem. People get that mindset with lots of shit. They get in that mindset with low fucking protein, high fat keto. They're like, oh, if I can eat more calories. And this is why, even when you brought up the protein, the recommendation, say a gram per pound body weight or whatever, 0.8, 1.2, I don't even need to give them a recommendation now because there's more to protein than just the muscle turnover rate. There's the satiation factor. So for somebody that's a fat ass that I'm coaching, all I need to do is tell them, anytime you're hungry, murder the hunger with lean protein. I don't give a fuck about the grams. If it's way over a gram per pound body weight, who cares? It doesn't matter. Murder the hunger with the protein. Then you're giving your body that one thing it needs that you got, like you said, you got to make that up on a daily. The one thing that your body doesn't fucking need is the fucking fat because you're fat. So you need to get your body, you flip that protein craving switch off with protein. And then you're always going to have a sugar craving eventually in the day. But I got women now, they're listening to me and they're fucking eating the calorie count drops through the floor when you got fat on you. It's not like they're forcing the calorie count to be low, but they're eating the lean protein till they're absolutely done with it. And they murder the hunger with the lean protein. And then the carb is just a carb craving. So they backfill the carbs and it ends up giving them a crazy low calorie count on the day. And what'll happen as you get leaner, like where you're at, it's the same idea, just that you'll end up chasing more carbs because you're running low on body fat. But imagine a fat guy. Imagine he eats some crazy protein count. I got a guy that's eating like this right now that I'm coaching. He'll just eat protein till he's done in every meal. And he's literally hitting 300 grams a day, right? So that's 1,200 calories of protein. The fat is whatever's in the lean meat. And he's chasing the lean stuff. You don't have to get more aggressive than chicken breast. You can definitely get leaner than that. But he's chasing the lean stuff. It puts him at 1,200 calorie ballpark on the protein from 300 grams. And he's having fucking not even 100 grams of carbs. And it's not that he's restricting the carbs. He's just not fucking hungry, because imagine his daily burn is like 3,000 calories a day, and he's literally feels great on maybe 1,400 calories, and he's not counting nothing. I'm just a fly on the wall counting for him, let's say. I'm just giving him rules to follow. And he ends up fucking burning 1,600 calories off of body fat in a day. Like this is the thing. When you use the lean protein and you eat that until you're done with it, and then you backfill the carbs, it creates the perfect situation to intuitively eat. And so me as a weight loss coach, I can just fucking drill that home, and they're just going to get lean. There's nobody on the planet that's not going to get to an exceptional body weight if they're eating lean protein and killing that protein switch and then backfilling the carbs. It's as simple as that. And you don't have to count one fucking calorie, because you already know the fat's low, right? Because you're picking foods that are low fat. It's a low fat diet prioritizing lean protein. And then based on your activity, like let's say you get into some hard cardio and shit, you're going to probably end up having a ratio that maybe it's 1 gram protein to 2 or 3 gram of carb on the day if you're doing crazy amount of cardio, like some of these hardcore cardiovascular athletes. It could even get to where you're cutting for a bodybuilding show, and some of those bodybuilders end up getting to maybe 1 gram of protein to like 0.75 grams of carbs, but you don't got to track shit. That's the beauty. Food choice. It's food choice, and people do not want to fucking eat properly. They eat like shit. So now they got to count the fucking calories, because the fat's 9 calories a fucking gram. Let's get that right. Not to mention it fucking slows your metabolism down. So, you got people that are entertaining a bunch of dietary fat, which brings the food volume down. Now they're forced to count the calories if they're actually trying to get lean. They don't got to count one fucking calorie. You don't got to count shit when you're eating lean protein till you're done with it and you're backloading the carbs. No fat person on the planet's not going to get lean doing that. And they just run from adding any fucking dietary fat to that diet. And they run from adding refined sugar to that diet too, because that's just calories and no volume as well. It's just you can't replace a fucking clean fucking diet. And this is how they were eating in the late 80s, early 90s. This is even what they were all, and then, like I said, that high fat craze started. People got confused. It turned into a fucking religion. And I believe that's actually what triggered the vegan movement. Because I even talked to it was my old man. He's like, yeah, I remember when everyone's buying fatty fucking steaks and shit. And then you end up getting, videos of shit taken out of context on the internet. And then it grosses people out. So then you ended up getting a low fat, the vegans that are doing low fat, some of them are just eating shit. But then you end up getting like a low fat, high carb vegan movement. So they got the low fat part right, but the fucking protein ain't there. And then and then the carnivore is another extra reaction to that, because now it's like the vegans are like, you're bad if you eat meat. And so the carnivores are like, fuck you. We're going to just overeat meat, and it's all fatty. So this is like right down the pipe, right down the middle. Lean fucking meat. You take the fucking carnivore diet, which is fucking fatty bullshit meat, and then you fucking add that to the fucking whole food carbs. Perfect diet. Right down the middle of the two fucking extremes. They get all the views on YouTube and shit.
Yeah, and you just add in the carbs too to like make you feel well. You don't have like this idea of extra is fun. This idea of like, hey, I can eat as much as I want if I do the sugar diet, or I could eat as much as I want if I go low carb. But eating as much as you want all the time just isn't a great idea if you're trying to get in really good shape. If you're still trying to lose weight, lose some body fat. And I like what you're saying about the protein, because protein, as Ted Naiman has pointed out for many years, he's written 2 books on it, and people should check it out. He wrote one that's called Protein versus Energy. It's a really easy read, and it actually is just full of a lot of infographics, and it shows you like charts and all these cool things, and shows you why what you're talking about works so well. Ted is a little bit more on like the lower carb side, but I think what he's proposing is like, I don't really care that much what you do with your energy source. Like you can have your fats or you can have your carbs. You can go on either side. I think for him personally, I think he likes to stay on the fat side, because I think one of the turnoffs to like the bodybuilding style diet, and I think one of the reasons that led people astray, was a bodybuilding diet is so incredibly challenging because of the way an actual bodybuilder goes about doing it. They usually do a lot of meal prep. they eat like 6 or 7 times a day. And I'm not saying that we need to eat 6 or 7 times a day. I'm just saying that that is like our interpretation is like, oh, if I'm going to eat their way with the low fat, higher carb, then I'm more tethered to my food and I have to walk around with
Well,
Tupperware all the time.
yeah, but I even when I talk about the bodybuilding diet, what I'm talking about is the food choice.
Correct.
Okay, like you know, you don't go eat like fucking Ronnie Coleman where you're eating 6 meal a day, or even fucking Jay where he had to force feed on 10 meal a day. Like it's not necessary shit. Like it's the food choice. And I'm gonna tell you too, tolerating fat, even like Naaman, right as soon as there's fat grams in that diet, you're fucking with the food volume. That fat does not need to fucking be there because now you're fucking with that food volume. Right? So now you're gonna have this is what the whole point I'm trying to say is you're
Can
fat.
you explain briefly what food volume, what you mean by food
Yeah, so
volume versus
basically,
density?
basically just on a calorie standpoint, the fat is 9 calories a gram with no volume, right? There's no volume. It's 9 calories a gram. It's straight oil, right? So there's no volume versus like, so let's say like a tablespoon, you would be way better that to knock the fat out other than what's in the lean meat. Don't fucking tolerate fatty meat, which I said it doesn't occur in nature. It doesn't unless you need a tech to get that shit. You need tech, like unless you're a grizzly bear that can fucking fish salmon. But you know what I mean? You can't. The fat is not easily accessible in fucking nature. It's not normal to eat dietary fucking fat. That's the problem. So two things. The fat will definitely still things that we learned from the whole sugar kick, the fat will still paralyze the fucking insulin. It doesn't need to fucking be there. So, like, let's say if you take the fat out, you could add the two macros that are way more important, more protein or more carbs. And then the fat being out is going to drop the calories down. And not to mention, if we're talking about ultimate metabolic macros, I actually did a live talking about this. Ultimate metabolic macros is going to be a diet that is fucking lean protein and low fat carbs. And there's a reason that those big bodybuilders like Ronnie and Jay, people just fucking always dwell on the steroid part of it. The reason that saved their ass bulking like that, because these guys were force feeding on a diet that's basically diabetes proof. Could you imagine if those guys were force feeding on Ted Naaman's macros or on fucking Sean fucking Muffin Top Baker's diet? You know what I mean? They're not going to build the muscle and they're going to give themselves terrible blood sugar response. So that's why I'm using that argument. It's not just about weight loss. What diet can you force feed and not get diabetes? There's only one. It's fucking low fat diet. So by default, if that's the best diet to force feed on and literally gain minimal body fat, and I mean eating like a competitive, like you said it, eating like Ronnie would eat, there's a reason those guys didn't add any fat to that diet because they already would have had iffy blood markers. Like, you know way more about this than me with fucking being on gear. And they didn't want any extra oil in that fucking diet because the fat does not need to be there. And if anybody that's entertaining fat in that fucking diet is giving suboptimal advice because I've been running like only what's in the lean meat. And even chicken breast is like 20% fat, which is still lean. But then if you drowned out the chicken breast with like carbs, it'll bring it down to 10% on the meal, even 5% on the meal. We were talking about that in those messages. And like you said, when you're force feeding as a percentage, if you do the math, those guys are almost always around 10% on the bulk. And then what happens when if you're just eating normal, let's say you're just eating normally, like you're a woman eating lean meat and carbs, normal, what'll happen is it'll look like probably close to a 5% dietary fat diet. That's what it'll look like. That Tara Dudane I found in 1986, I can tell just by looking at the fucking food choices. It's blatant. If the meat's lean and they're eating a good amount of carbs and the carbs is about a 2-to-1 just naturally, it's a 5% fat diet. So that's what I'm trying to say. The fat doesn't need to fucking be there. Because as soon as the fat's there, it brings the food volume down, fucks with the metabolism, and creates a situation where now you would have to count the calories to get lean and you're restricting protein and or carbs. And you do not want to restrict those fucking two macros because the fat's on you. We store the fat We need the protein on the daily and the carbs. So that's why it makes it easy to coach people, because you don't have to fuck around with any of these, and the calorie calculators as well can make people do fucked up things as well. Like it can make them restrict when they shouldn't be. And like I got women now, one woman I'm helping 400 pounds, and they're so addicted to these electronics. Like it's just fucking insanity. Like you don't need to count nothing if you just prioritize those lean food choices. Fat being in that diet fucks it up. And so like if Ted was like lean meat and he wasn't so anti-carb, you'll get a way better fucking result. You're going to get the best body composition on lean protein and carbs. The fat does not need to fucking be there. And if Jay and those guys were bulking on that diet, they're giving themselves type 2 diabetes. That's what sumo wrestlers do. Sumo wrestlers have fat in their diet. Could you imagine Coleman bulking? Like this is why dirty bulking is fucking stupid as well. Because you literally turn yourself into a type 2 diabetic. And then when you go to cut, it takes like a month just to get straightened back out. But these guys, their metabolism's running so hot. And that is why it takes work to bulk as a big open bodybuilder. It takes an effort. But you know, like if you took Ronnie's diet or Jay, I just like using those two guys because they really clean when they're at their best. Even Jay had old blow up, bulk, dirty shit when he was younger. But you take their bulking diet, where they're where they're sitting there force feeding, you know this, and they're like, fuck, I don't want to eat this fucking meal. And all you do is you tell Ronnie, it's like, Ronnie, we're done the bulk. Just eat normal. And he keeps eating the same food choices. Fuck, he leans right out. And then it's not till they get to the show where they start playing around with ramping the protein even higher and bringing the carbs down just to get really dry and shit, right? But that's what I'm trying to say, Mark. I'm trying to fucking help the general population get educated on what's going to get the fucking weight off. No calorie counting. They can literally throw the scale in the garbage can. If I could just teach them food choice, lean protein, priority one, and then the carbs, and then make the best carb choices as well. So obviously, you got your berries and shit, and and then you got your starches. Is potatoes better than rice? Like always just making a better food choice, which is funny because fucking Weight Watchers definitely died because of the carnivore fucking diet movement and shit. But Weight Watchers, there's a few flaws with some of the foods they give like a 0 number to. There's a little bit, it's a little too calorie dense. There's some bad foods there. But in the general idea, Weight Watchers will get a very good result because it just works on caloric density with fucking food choices. And you don't need, like, if you can coach people, like I was making a joke, I'm rambling here a bit, but I was making a joke that I could coach Forrest fucking Gump. Like Gump ain't listening to fucking, oh, Gump, you need a gram per pound of body weight on the fucking protein. You need fucking, like, all his, like, dude, he's like, how do I get, it'd be like, say Gump was fat. And he's like, Lieutenant Dan, how do I lose weight, Lieutenant Dan? And Lieutenant Dan's just like, eat a whole pile of these fucking shrimp, Gump, until you're full, and then let's have some fucking potatoes. Like, Gump could do it because it's just fucking food choice. You can't go telling Gump, oh, let's eat fucking protein and fucking 30% fat and fucking cut, it's bullshit. And this is where I try to get the best results, and all my bullshit yo-yo dieting fucking gimmicks over the years and everybody else that pumps this shit up to grab the algorithm. This is how you coach a fat person. Like I can coach a fat person now and be like, stuff your face with fucking chicken breast until you're full and then eat carbs and avoid fat like the fucking plague. And like if you can coach Gump, you're a good fucking weight loss coach. If you can coach somebody with a fucking 75 IQ, that means you like all of it is fucking food choice.
It does make it simple. I mean, look, most carbohydrate sources they're not, unless they're man-made, they're not accompanied by fat. So like I've communicated with people, and I've been telling people this for years, that, a potato or rice or, and I've talked to my brother about this a bunch, fruit, vegetables, they're just opportunities to eat something that doesn't have any fat in it. And I think that's great. And even when I was doing like a lower carb diet, over time, I started to realize going from 330 to 300 and 270 and so on. And like, I lost over 100 pounds. And during that journey, I started to realize like, oh, I could actually just load up because I was a big guy. I can load up and almost eat as much protein as I want. And that was like, that felt really like freeing. And then I also learned that, oh, I could kind of choose between fat or carbohydrates. For me at the time, what I wonder is if this diet kind of came along, if at that time I would have been able to lose weight the same way.
Yes.
I'm not really sure. One thing I will say in defense of fats is that they can assist you to be full for longer. But with carbohydrates, you have the opportunity just to eat way more of them. As
I'm
you're
telling
saying,
you, like the protein, when it's like, say, when you were fat, because we kind of talked about this. So when I competed in powerlifting, I competed at 82 and 74 kilo. So I couldn't get like fucking blowout fat pig version like you did when you were just literally chasing the fucking craziest numbers you could hit. Now, when you were talking about some of the experiments where you're running the protein through the roof, I guarantee you weren't eating chicken breast. You weren't eating whitefish. So you see, that'll be an argument. The fat is protein. If you were eating protein back in that day and it was lean, you would have never, you would have
Ryan,
never
are
got
you able
fat.
to,
There's no way.
just a second, Ryan, are you able to bring up a picture?
Yeah, I could probably do that.
I'm going to see if Ryan, our producer here, I want to see if he can bring up a picture because this will illustrate your point even further. Like I did like a bodybuilding style diet for probably maybe 10 weeks. And this picture from BSN, if you can bring that photo
Like
up.
what stage in the bodybuilding diet were you in though? Were you like, was it what? Were you like? Was it low fat where you were bringing the carbs down, or were you? It was like the last 4 to 6 weeks, or were you
It,
still?
it was like, it was basically like, hey, I got a photo shoot around this
Oh
time
yeah,
and I need to get, I need to get lean and get in shape for it. And I probably started at like 270 and got to like 250. And maybe Ryan can click on a couple of these. I think maybe you can find one full body one, but that one all the way to the right's good too.
see that brings. Is he bringing it up?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's able to make it so you can see it as well. But
Yeah.
oh, you can see it?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, just click on that one all the way to the right there. See if you can bring it. Sometimes it's hard to bring these things up. But anyway, I just bring this up to say that like I don't have a before picture from that time, but like I basically just cover up all that muscle mass with like a little bit more chub.
Yeah.
and 10 weeks earlier, that's what I looked like. I had the muscle. It's not like I built all that muscle in 10 weeks. But as you're saying, all I did was switch. When I got the bodybuilding style diet from my friend, I was just like, oh man, this is a real kick in the ass because I'm switching from, all this red meat that I'm used to eating. I'm switching out bacon. I'm switching out, whole eggs. I'm doing
Right.
egg whites. And one of the things that it said, like one of the notes on there was, anytime you're hungry, you can have 10 egg whites or as much tilapia as you want.
Exactly. See,
And I was like, I don't want to eat that. And he's like, that's the point, you fat
it's
bastard.
fucking crazy. Like how I came back to that full, and that's why I'm grateful for the sugar fasting and sugar diet was like the fucking king of fucking shortcuts. And even more so than the 0 calorie fasting. And it literally brought me back to that intuitively. And it's funny, like we're talking about, like, this is why Ronnie, they would talk about how the guys that could put food back, like always did the best in open bodybuilding. Because if you were eating like Ronnie's exact diet when he's strict, like chicken breast, rice, grits, there is no fucking way you would ever got to 300 pounds. Ever. You would
Right.
never. Like Ronnie, these guys were only getting maybe like 25 pounds over stage body fat levels, not counting doing the diuretics to drop water and shit. And they were force feeding around the fucking clock. You can't do that on any other fucking macro split. So I like to come at that angle where it's like, you can't get fat on a fucking diet that's low fat, that's fucking got protein. You can't do it. You fucking can't. You can't get over a very good body weight. And you would have to be a machine like those guys to force feed like that to even gain any sort of weight. So a natural bodybuilder, I've seen like like you say, that's the perfect example what you said. Lean protein till you, like, I would recommend to people, like I said, lean protein till they're fucking not even hungry. Not like, just like your coach told you, exactly. you know? And the funny part is this message is just so fucking muddled. It's so muddled. Like even I don't mind like Sean Baker, okay? This guy's got insane fucking genetics. Like, you know, and his diet is shit. If Baker was eating lean protein and he let go of the fat bullshit, Sean would be fucking ripped.
He works out like a maniac. He works out hard, you know. So that, but then he fills it with all that fat.
His work ethic's obviously top notch because he still doesn't understand a lot of these guys. He didn't get fat in the past by eating fucking chicken breast and fucking tilapia and rice. He got fat eating fat. He got fat eating the dietary fat. And not to mention it just fucks your metabolism, right? So there's that. And that's why you see people that are trying to entertain a lot of fat in the diet with, like, everyone's got their fucking magic macros. It's all bullshit. That's the whole point I'm getting at. The fat doesn't need to fucking be there. And then people end up having to grind the calories low. And it's a bad macro split. And the metabolism takes a dirt nap because you got to keep driving the calories down, where your metabolism stays hot when you're on lean protein and fucking carbs. And I'll even go as far as saying lean protein only, like lean protein and vegetables. Most people don't need to ever do that. But if you are hitting that lean protein, like you're going to produce a lot of sugar. So you can actually carb load on fucking lean protein. That's why rabbit starvation's a thing. You don't fucking stall on rabbit meat. You fucking die from getting too skinny. That doesn't happen with your fucking ribeyes and your tomahawks. You know? No, but Baker could be ripped, and he'd be probably like 120 fucking pounds and jacked. And when we're talking holding on to muscle, you know how much more anabolic you are when your metabolism's actually running properly and you have high glucose tolerance? Like, that's why those people need to take a note from these late 80s, especially the late 80s female bodybuilders like Corey Everson and like Tara Dudane. You know why? Because those women weren't as extreme as the men, and they were ripped year round, eating clean, no bullshit. And it's like lean meat and fucking and fruit and carbs. And they were ripped year round. And only time that they would actually bring the carbs down, and just like your coach told you, the protein would come up because they would just focus more on the protein than the carbs. So that's the one time where the carbs will come below the protein count, is before a show. And it was just, now it's just straight fucking laziness. And that's why a lot of these bodybuilding coaches now, I don't even compete. I've never competed in bodybuilding, but it's the same idea when you're trying to cut for powerlifting. It's the same idea. Different physique, but you're trying to hold as much muscle as you can and stay as strong as you can. So like I competed at 163 pounds. And at 163 as a natural powerlifter, I had good numbers. Like, you know, I was double body weight bencher at 163 pounds, drug free. I was pulling 500 and I was squatting like 420. You know, and I only got down to that weight for one meet. If I knew what I know now, I could have hung out at that lower body weight, and I could have made 74 kilo my main competition weight instead of 83 kilo. You know, so it's the same shit. So I have experience there, like big time, because I competed in powerlifting for fucking years. And but that's the thing with Baker. He could fucking get. It's just I bust him so bad because that fucking diet, having the high fat, is not natural. It's a man-made diet when you're chasing fat on that meat. If you go back enough years ago, before there was even any domesticated animals, everything is lean as fuck. Lean as fuck. Land animals, it's lean. And that's why lions don't fuck with hippos. Because hippos will kill a fucking lion. That's the last thing a lion goes after. The zebra meat they're eating, that's like the same as Serge Nubret's diet. And did you know that story about how they fucking tried to fucking say Serge Nubret was in a porn movie when he's just in this movie? So then it was in 1974, and they didn't want him to compete against Arnie because he fucking would make Arnie look like a fucking fat pig. Because Arnie was still doing old school fucking crappy dieting. You know, Arnie's genetics were crazy, but Serge Nubret was eating like low fucking fat diet, like horse meat. You know, and then when Mentor came into play. Mentor was the first guy that said, drop the fats down and ramp the carbs up. And then all those guys and it even got better than Mentor's advice, to be honest. Because Mentor had like a fucking macro split that it was like 15 fat, like 25 protein and 60 carb. But they got better than that. Those women in the late 80s, those female bodybuilders, before all the drugs got crazy, and they were very small, they were like 5'10", getting on stage about 140, 145 pounds. Those women were on point. And if you go back to the fucking late 80s, early 90s and try to find what you can. But even when you go on Google now, Mark, and you try to search diets, it's not coming from the horse's mouth. It's this generalized fucking bullshit. And that's why when you ask Al, you know, AI, like everyone's even since I started talking about this, people are trying to find information, but they're doing it in a lazy way. And it's like, I'm like, ask Al. Al's going to just grab all the shit that's blowing up the internet and give you like a bad piece of advice. You know, that's the way it's going to work.
Yeah. It's going to tell you that you're going to crush your hormones and you're going to run into all these problems. And I talked with Milos Sarcev a little bit recently because you were mentioning
he pushed
some of his diet stuff and how he was very low fat. And so I didn't even realize he was extremely low fat, and he was extremely low fat all the time. And he had people coming at him saying like, hey, you need flaxseed oil back in the day when flaxseed oil was a thing. You need Udo's Choice oil. You need EPA and DHA. And he said, he's like, I fell for it. He's like, I fell for those traps here and there, and I took those things. He's like, but I never noticed any difference. It wasn't helpful. It actually seemed like it sent him backwards more.
Yeah.
And so he was eating like 700 to 800 grams of carbohydrates a day. He was like 300 to 500 grams of protein a day. I mean, he's got one of the better physiques in the history of bodybuilding. He looked incredible.
A lot of these guys lost their way. Even one of my mentors that actually went through powerlifting, he was an extraordinary natural bodybuilder in the early 90s in Western Canada, and then he got into powerlifting. And even we had a phone call the other day, and he's mad. He's angry because he's like, fuck, he got sucked in like to keto and the fucking anabolic diet and all this bullshit. And he's literally competed when he was doing everything correct. You know, early 90s, cut the fat right the fuck out, lean meat, carbs. And as far as the hormones go, so anyway, I was going to say, like, people lost their way, even these very good bodybuilding coaches, because that's how powerful the fucking message is with the internet and shit, to be honest. I fucking ain't like this my whole life. My mom was like right in the prime, right in that early 90s low fat craze. And I already knew that. And then when I started my YouTube channel, I started pushing some fasting and shit. One thing leads to another. Then you find out about keto and fuck around and fuck your whole goddamn shit up because you know what I mean? And I was already doing this. Like Milos, my buddy, like he was mad that he fucking just let himself swing so far in that pendulum the last like how many years because of the fucking the message is getting pushed out there. You know, and that's the thing. Like, and what I was gonna say with the hormones, that's a good. So this is the thing I noticed. The women, let's talk to women because they're the ones that always bitch the most about the fucking hormones. As long as you're prioritizing that lean protein and you cater to your sweet tooth with the carbs, let's say you're 400 pounds, you will have no issues because you're giving your body what it wanted, even if the calories are really low. Because as long as your body's happy, it's different when you're restricting and your body's not happy. But if you're hitting the protein and there's no hunger, hunger matters. Hunger does matter. So if there's no hunger from the protein and then you have a sweet tooth later and you have some carbs, even though the calories that day might have been like literally sometimes with these really fat women, it could be like 800 or 900 or who knows if they're not doing much exercise, but they feel good. So the fat comes right off their body. And when you get leaner, intuitively the carbs will come up. Like you'll just eat more carbs, not counting nothing. You just run the fat through the floor, whole foods, no added fucking refined sugar to those fucking sugar sources, lean meat. And what happens, as long as those carbs are up, you'll never hit a wall on that fucking, on your hormonal levels. Never. It ain't happening. It's actually the carbs. I've seen more people get put on testosterone doing a fucking strict carnivore diet with a 50-50 macro split, fat to protein, no carbs, and you can shake a fucking stick at, and the fat's sky high. So, you know what I mean? It's fucking bullshit. It is. It really is. And it's, this is why even yourself, like the sugar diet, sugar fasting, like shit was blowing up on YouTube. And I'm not going to, like, it you get caught up in the thing. And I'm like, fuck, I seen a fucking pattern within like probably right before I finally just abandoned the whole thing about 2 weeks before. And I'm like, I seen what I learned. And I'm like, yep, this has got to go. And then that's when I just went to low fat diet, and not even saying low fat, high carb, because now it's vegan, just low fat, and fucking push the like just old school low fat fucking diet. That's why I put 1990s low fat diet craze is back, and 1990s low fat bodybuilding diet. Can fat people lose? I even said, can fat women lose weight eating like a 1990s bodybuilder? Right? Like shit, like, which they can. I got women right now, they're fat as hell. Like, fuck, I'm just like, you're not eating like Ronnie. You're just eating the same foods as Ronnie, but you're also, you know, another thing, those guys weren't eating hardly any vegetables on their bulk because they needed more calories from the starch. So as soon as you tell the fat person protein, vegetables, fruit, starch, like in that order, it's perfect. The only reason those guys would dodge vegetables and fruit because they needed more, they were trying to get in big calories on a low fat diet. So they'd have to knock the vegetables and shit out. You know, that's why they'd use vegetables though when they're cutting, right? Because the volume.
And if you think about like the different markets that have exploded, you know, you got like diet sodas and all these different, you know, sugar-free stuff, right? There's a sugar-free market has absolutely exploded, or low sugar, you know, protein bars and all these different things. And it's actually, you know, from a manufacturing standpoint, it's hard to make stuff without fat. It's very hard. Like I was even working on a project for a little while, and this company that I was trying to get some bars made. I was trying to get some like protein bars made, and they're like, that'll break our machine. Like what you're asking me to do, like it will totally mess up our machine. Now there are certain machines that can handle making things lower fat, but those of you that like, you know, buy like rice cakes or something like that, you know how fragile those damn things are. So you imagine that from a business perspective, as a manufacturer trying to make these fucking rice cakes, they break up all the time, and there's like a cost to a lot of these things. So I think that the sugar-free route, the low carb route, can be was monetized like crazy. And I'm sure there's room to monetize the low carb stuff, but we've seen that before. Like in the 90s, they were trying to do that, but all that stuff had too much fat in it still. And I think that we're sometimes not really paying attention. You're like, oh, that only has 2 grams of fat, but it's like 2 grams of fat per every 2 cookies, and you ate 6 cookies, and you know your fat calories are adding up super fast. I want to mention one more thing quick, is that we know for sure that people are going to do their best to follow the diet, follow the plan, follow the recommendations that we're giving. Hopefully they have days where they have 10 grams of fat, 20 grams of fat, and so on, and they keep it really low. But we also recognize that people are going to just do what they're going to do, and they're going to end up with more fat than that. So it's rare that someone follows something to the letter T 100%. And we know that with previous experience of keto diets and carnivore and all the different protocols that we've recommended to people before, people tend to like actually trail off a little bit. So this idea that you're not going to like ever eat any fat again is a myth. You are going to still be consuming fat because it's trickled in throughout your food that you're eating every day. And then we know for sure that there's going to be occasions, there's going to be vacations and celebrations and stuff where you're going to fold and you're going to eat something different. But now you have a plan that you can just get right back on track with and keep those fats as low as you can.
And truthfully, like I say, that's a good point. But that being said, too, I'll tell you something I've learned. When people have confidence that something will actually work, they are a lot more disciplined than you think. Because even when I was pushing that 0-calorie fasting, or even look at the sugar fasting, fuck, they'll go days on end. So
Right.
all I need as a weight loss coach is to get fucking results. And you know, as long as people are choosing the lean meat sources, you don't even need to give them a gram number on the fat. All I need to do, like I said, is see what they're eating, and I'll be like, no, this is better, this is better, this is better. And that's the idea. And I'll tell you though, people are just they have no confidence in their fucking diet. And that's what caused them to yo-yo all over the fucking place. And the scale really hurts them. The scale and the calorie calculating bullshit. And that's why once I get more before and afters, just pushing the good old whole foods, Whole foods, and that's the other thing. You're never going to fucking get around the whole foods. There's no, as soon as you're doing shortcuts at all with supplementation, there's always a trade-off, always. You know, and the thing is, you're not restricting carbs. Anything where you're trying to restrict carbs and dieting in general has no fucking adherence. None. You know, it's just people, when they see that something truly works, and I start throwing results up on my shit where I got a 50, 60, 7-year-old woman getting ripped, I'll tell you, the people that you're saying, you know, they'll stick to shit a lot more fucking glued to it than you think. And once they're ripped, if there's an outing or a Christmas dinner and shit, what I'm trying to push anyway, is practicing the fucking low fat, clean eating whole foods and practicing lean protein. And then once you're ripped, if there's an outing, who gives a fuck? The average person, all my goal is for the average person is to stay fucking in a best body weight you can, and not even body weight, like just the best the best body composition is a better word, to be honest. The best body composition year round. That's my goal. You know, if people want to take it even farther than that, there is like little things that, and obviously the discipline. You're built in willpower, and that's the other thing I want to hit real quick for you if we want to wrap it up. But is things that are built in willpower are dog shit. So you got discipline and willpower, and truthfully, when you're eating like this and you know the food choices you can get away with, it's built in discipline. Like even when your coach was telling you if you're hungry, he wasn't saying you just can't eat. He's saying you get the fucking egg whites, which obviously that's really strict. Imagine he just said chicken breast, right? Because you were trying to get ripped. It's not hard. There's no willpower. It's not like the fasting. You know, where it's raw willpower. Even that fucking zero fat, zero carb carnivore diet. You know how much fucking willpower that takes to even do for 3 fucking days? It's because the body does not want to be restricting carbohydrate. So I'm telling you, that's why I'm not being soft at all. There's no more, like people come to me now and they're like, how do I fucking go and have a fucking meal at a restaurant? Right? And I'm like, you know what you order at the fucking restaurant? Fucking chicken breast, broccoli, and fucking rice. You know, if they want to do a shortcut, it's on them. If they're coming to me for coaching, there's no fucking shortcuts. It's fucking done. I'm not catering to any of that fucking bullshit, because that's how this sugar fasting blew up. Because I was still, me as a coach, and even yourself, I guess you could say you are a weight loss coach. You know, I was catering to the fucking crybaby bullshit. I was catering to the bullshit with the 0 calorie fasting. You're catering to the crybaby bullshit with fucking low carb dieting. You're catering to the crybaby bullshit with anything that looks like it just looks radical with no fucking adherence. Where when you're eating a diet that's lean meat, wild deer meat in the bush where I live, berries, fucking peas and carrots, and fucking potatoes, nobody can say shit. And that's another thing. No one can say a fucking thing about eating like this, because it's just that. They know in their heart that it's like, these guys are right. You know, this is fucking clean eating 101, and that's all I'm going to be pushing from now on to the day I fucking die on my fucking YouTube channel.
I love what you said about practicing. You know, that's something that we don't really talk much about. And look, we know a lot of people are going to struggle. They're going to have a hard time. They're going to try whatever diet protocol we talk about, or if there's something new or different, we're going to mention a particular protocol. And some people are going to feel that this is easy to go lower fat or to go really low fat. And for some people, it's probably still going to be a struggle. They'll probably still overeat. They'll probably still run into some hurdles here and there, but you're practicing. So like, give yourself a minute. Like, it might take you a month. It might take you 3 months just to kind of get the hang of, okay, it's got to be low fat. Okay, it's got to be low fat. And you got to keep kind of pounding that into your head with each meal that you have. You don't need to become crazy about it or anything, but you just, over time, you're trying to do the best you can. And I have some friends that they'll tell me like, oh, I eat pretty clean. And then you start to have a conversation with them, and they have a burrito, you know, here and there, or they have a sandwich at lunch, right? And they're like, well, you know, there's nothing wrong with a sandwich or burrito. And you're like, well, there's kind of everything wrong with those foods, because you're having cheese, you're having mayo on your sandwich, you might have bacon on your sandwich or some sort of dressing or something. And immediately you have this fat carbohydrate bomb. And then the same thing happens with a burrito. And if people could just start to make some smaller changes, I mean, I would prefer people eat at home, but I recognize they're not always going to. if you have a burrito and you have chicken breast in the burrito, you have beans, you have rice, it's like you're off to a really good start. Now just throw some salsa on there, which also is fat free. And that should be, that should taste really good. Like that's a great opportunity to eat something that has carbs, it has some protein in it. And again, if you make that at home, then you can be assured that it doesn't have like oils and a bunch of other bullshit in it. But that's still some really good eating. It's just a matter of like practicing, getting used to maybe cooking a little bit at your house, and shit like that's just going to make your life a lot easier when you learn how to do things for yourself.
And that's even like how, like, I like to use Weight Watchers as the example. That's essentially with Weight Watchers, you're practicing hitting the 0-point foods, which essentially are low caloric density. There's a few on the list that are fucking no
Yeah,
good.
chicken
But
breast is 0, right?
yeah, it would be, but there's a couple fattier meats on that list that shouldn't be a 0. But you see, that's the mindset. It's about, okay, take a look what you're eating. Can you make a better choice? And you can literally get a crazy result with food choice. You can get somebody ripped on food choice. It's like chicken breast. Like, let's say the baseline for getting ripped is chicken breast, or even leaner meat than that, and broccoli. Well, fuck. So anything that stems outside of that isn't as good as that. So people, once first off, they got to get the confidence and understand that cutting the fat out of the diet is fucking a good thing. And the whole fat movement is one of the biggest problems. And then once they know that, it's like, okay, like people know intuitively what's a cleaner food. And that's why I'm saying it's not based in willpower. It's going to be based in discipline, because your only time you have shit that's based in willpower is when you're fighting a craving that needs to be met, which is going to be protein or a clean carb. And if it's like if somebody's starving right now, and I'm like, okay, you get chicken breast until you're fucking not starving. And then they eat the chicken breast. And it's like a fat ass pig that's in bariatrics, like fucking maybe he's in the hospital. He's like 800 pounds. And he's like, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. Like, this is where now Zardin fucked up. Now Zardin, like my 600-pound life, the old doctor,
Yeah.
he needed to be telling those fat asses to cram lean meat down their fucking throat. Lean meat, lean protein. Because if you had a fat person in the hospital, it's like 800 pounds. And anytime they're fucking hungry, it's like, you get to eat this. And it'll kill their hunger. And then they just get used to eating. That's a palate issue, too, from all the fucking high palatable shit. Right? So, and this is where, if you don't tolerate the crybaby bullshit, and you understand that if you can base a diet in discipline and not willpower, you're going to get a crazy fucking result. And all it takes is a few people to start spitting out pictures, like for me, like helping people with weight loss get before and afters, and then it just triggers the whole fucking thing. Because people are tougher than you think, than a lot of people give them credit for. If they need to know something will work. They need to truly know it will work. And once they know it will work, like I always made an example, like let's say there was $1 million, like, 30 feet in the ground, and you knew for sure it's there. You're going to fucking dig down there and get it. But imagine somebody told you, yeah, there's a 5% chance there's $1 million down there. Fuck, you might just be like, fuck that. I'm not gonna dig 30 feet by hand to fucking take a chance there's $1 million. You see, but so if they know for sure something works, and that's what my job is, to spit out those fucking results. And then people will see them, and boom, you start fucking blowing this shit up, right? So
when it comes to training, are you giving any specific recommendations? Because I know before with like sugar fasting, you talked a lot about body weight, but I think you're just a fan of body weight exercise
that's the
in
point,
general.
though. And honestly, when you're eating like this, because now we're pumping the protein again. The fucking protein. You don't gotta limit shit. You can train however the fuck you want. You don't have to fucking limit nothing. You just go hard. You know what I mean? Like, it's perfect. Like not having protein in your diet, like if you're just getting that in, your recovery is going to be way better. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to limit shit. My personal training, I've been doing body weight for like almost half a year now, nonstop. I don't even touch a weight at all. But like, if people are pumping iron and shit, most people are like, there's no restrictions on this. This is why it's such a good diet. It's not like high fat, 0 carb, where your fucking cardiovascular suffers, or you're going some crazy low protein bullshit on a 0 fat, high carb vegan diet where now you can't recover worth fuck from resistance training. You know, it's just the best diet. And if you look out in nature, every place in the world has their example of this type of diet, whether it's fish, lean fish, rice and vegetables, whether it's where I live, where it'd be mainly wild game meat. You know, small game are going to be the easiest to get. And then you're going to have like your tubers and your vegetables and shit and your berries, or maybe you're in the jungle or whatever. And it's like, there's always a version of a low fat diet where you prioritize protein and then hit your carbs. There's always a version wherever you live.
Lean sources of protein, I just want to point out to people that a lot of times your fat calories, I'm not into calories. I don't like to count anything, but I do think that people there always want a recommendation of some sort. And what I've noticed, and I think what you observed and you told me was, if you're trying to get really lean, 5 to 10% fats is probably where you're going to land. So if somebody has 4,000 calories in a day, they might end up with around 40 grams of fat just via the amount of meat that they ate.
Yeah, I can do the math on that. Well, it's actually what happens is with those bodybuilders, when the protein gets ramped up, the carbs end up coming down and their fat percentage actually goes up. But it doesn't matter because it's just because they're eating more lean meat, but the calories have dropped through the floor. So when Jay used to have these high days where he would eat like 250 grams of protein and like 1,000 grams of carbs, those days his fat percentage was like 2%. You see what I'm saying? But then his low day, and those days were also like 6,000 calorie days, so if you do the math, you got about 1,000 calories of protein there, and if he goes as high as 1,200 on the carbs, you're looking at, it's a 6,000 calorie day for him, or a little more on those high days. His medium day was about 300 grams of protein and about 500 to 700 grams of carbs. And I do the math on that. That's right around your 5% fat-ish, very low. And then his low day, which was his rest days, and then you have more of these low days, a lot of these guys, when they get closer to the show, was 400 grams of protein and only 300 grams of carbs, but that only adds up to about a 4,000 calorie day. So even though his fat, because if you take the chicken breast, for example, let's just say you got 600 calories worth of chicken breast, right? At 20% fat, 100 calories of that is fat. Divided by 9 calories a gram, you're looking at like what? About 13, 14 grams. So you're, about 13, 14 grams of fat and 600 calories of chicken breast, which would give you around about 150 grams of protein. So you see what I'm saying? So the fat percent would actually go up slightly when they get the calories down because the carb calories dilute the fat out in a sense. So if you're on meat only, let's say you're only on chicken breast and that's it, your fat percent's going to be exactly what? 20% exact, because chicken breast is 20%. So if you're just eating chicken breast and broccoli, you're at 20% fat, but you're getting ripped. But if we added in the same amount of calories where the carbs as that chicken breast had, now we just drop the fat down to 10%. If we add in like say 3 times the carbs as the protein, now we're at 5%. And that's why Jay's high day was so low on the fat. So that's just quick math for people. That's why we don't need to worry about any of that shit. You just chase the lean fucking meat, and the default, I noticed with those women in the late 80s, and I even mentioned Erin Stern, who's more modern. She follows a very good diet, and she was almost eating exactly the same as those late 80s bodybuilders, and she's lean year round. And it looked, just eyeballing the food, and usually if you're about 2 parts carbs to 1 part protein on the off season, just eating normal, they wouldn't even be counting anything. They just keep the fat rock bottom. They wouldn't even have to count shit. It's probably in their head, but they're not using a calorie count to restrict, right? But it'll work out about 5% fat. It is right around 5% fat year round. And so what I'm saying is when people get lean, if they're eating to satiety on the protein and getting in their carbs till they're done with the carbs, when they're lean, if they're not trying to get like stage lean, it'll work out to 5%-ish, somewhere between 5 and 10% fat diet for sure. Just knocking no added fats to the diet, other than what's in the lean meat. And so they don't have to worry about shit. Just chase the lean meat source. You don't got to get more aggressive than chicken breast, really. That's aggressive. Chicken breast is about the same fat as like round steak. I'll have round steak. I'll just trim the fat right off the edge. There's a little bit on the edge, but it's about the same percentages. The round steaks are about the same as the chicken. Because I know them bodybuilders usually when they get into their prep, they cut the red meat right out, right? But then you get your lean fish. Your egg whites are obviously zero fat. You got your zero fat dairy products. There's so many meats out there, I don't even know what they are. I just stick to the basics. But but that's what people need to do. They need to have like a good 3 meats in their back pocket that they trust. Okay, these are lean meats. Stick to those meats. Eat those till you're fucking full. Like I'm telling fat people, literally kill the hunger completely with the protein. Not like I ate some protein, but I'm still hungry. Like I mean, kill it, just like your coach told you, Mark. Fuck, that's the best advice. I fucking just came to that conclusion myself the other day. It's like just because I was like, get the protein in good amounts, but then I'm like, fuck that. Eat the protein till the hunger is gone. And then what'll happen is you're gonna have a sweet tooth sooner or later, and then you have like some fucking light carb or whatever, right? Or maybe some carrots or blueberries or whatever. But you don't have to be that strict. If you're just trying to get to a wicked body weight, throw in some starch, but protein first. Protein, prioritize the protein. Even though and a lot of people think when I say prioritize protein, they think, oh, now Cole's going low carb. Well, no, because when you get leaner, you're prioritizing the protein, but the carb count's always going to be higher, like where you're at right now. If you're just eating normal and chasing the protein in, your carb count grammage is always going to be higher than your protein count because your protein count's only going to get so fucking high. Like you might end up having, let's just pretend you had a 300-gram protein day. So that's about, let's just call it 1,200 calories of protein, even though there's some fat there, just a little bit of fat. So you're only at 1,200 fucking calories. So Mark, you're like, say you're like a 3,000 calorie, 3,500 calorie guy. Even though you prioritize that protein to knock that protein switch out, you're fucking end up eating like fucking 1,000 calories with the fucking carbs, right? So you're prioritizing the protein doesn't mean it's going to be higher than the carb count, but it will be when you're fat. That's one thing. It's just a trend I saw. And it's funny because the fat people will almost end up eating intuitively like the bodybuilders are eating against their will a little bit for the stage. The fat people will almost be eating like a bodybuilder when they're on like that last 4 weeks. Like something like Jay when he was at like, the protein is definitely higher in grams than the carbs. The fat people will gravitate towards a ratio that looks like that because they got so much fucking fat on them. I'm just seeing the patterns.
Yeah. I like shrimp a lot. I like scallops a lot. And sometimes when you go to restaurants, sometimes you can get a shrimp cocktail. It's like super easy.
Let's go to Bubba Gump's.
Yes, yeah. Just try to leverage these things, and then also canned stuff. You got canned chicken, and you have like tuna, and even pink salmon. I think only has like 3 or 4 grams of fat.
Pink salmon's not bad. Like I try to get a fish in usually once a day, and the canned pink salmon, you're looking at like I think 8 grams of fat in that can. But then you juggle it. It's like, okay, well, there's a little bit extra fat in that salmon, so I'll get a little more anal with my other fucking meat sources on the day, right? Like maybe I'll have like something that's leaner than maybe chicken. I might have some chicken breast, but something that's even leaner to counter. Like it's just, again, the food choices, right? But no one's getting fat eating canned, like even at that, you know what I mean? Like you're not getting fat eating that. It's lean. See, that's what people don't understand, though. When the fat's not in the diet, the metabolism stays hot. The fatty meat is shit. And as soon as, when these carnivore MD guys, when they fucking realize that, like, now, but then you got to add other foods in. You can't just eat rabbit meat forever, because now it's not carnivore, right? Like, it's fucking crazy bullshit.
What's interesting to me with this diet and some of the things you experienced when you were younger with like boxing and some of the training and some of the different things I've heard you talk about in your life, when you just go all in on something, it's amazing how little complication there is. And I think that some of what you're talking about here is probably like a little frustrating, maybe annoying to some other people in the fitness industry, because you're kind of eliminating their job. My dad always told me when I was young, if you can eliminate, like whatever job you have, if you can eliminate your own job, it's like you'll make a lot of money. And he goes, if you can eliminate everybody else's job, you'll be able to even make more money. And I think a lot of what you're doing is you are kind of, because these coaches, I think they want to like have these tricky little things just to coach, just to have these nuanced things to I guess try to tweak. And they're like 70 grams of fat on this day, and this other day you're going to go 33 grams of fat. Then we're going to bring you back up to 100 because your metabolism is going to go nuts when we bring that up. And then we're going to switch back to this. And they got all these things. And I don't want to take away from the bodybuilding coaches out there because I've only done one bodybuilding show. I don't know shit about bodybuilding. I don't have the experience that some of these guys do, but I do think they're tricking themselves. It's like you end up sort of faking yourself out, and they probably have better results if they just went all in and said, you know what, forget about the fat. I just want to see what happens when I just get rid of it completely.
Yeah, that's what happened with the sugar fasting, because I was already at a lean body weight and I went like 7 fucking days with only on sugar. And so, you know, it gives you confidence how fucking hard you can push the body. And that's kind of what happened with me with the 0-calorie fasting. But obviously, what's that end up leading to? Fucking yo-yo dieting. And that's the problem. People are chronic yo-yo dieters. How many people have came to me and said, Cole, I watched your shit. Like all the people that promote fasting. It's like, I watched your shit and I lost this much weight, but they forget to add the part where, oh yeah, and I gained all the fucking weight back. Or I did carnivore and I lost some weight and gained it all back. Or even got worse health results after because their thyroid was all fucked up. You know, but you know, you're right. Like the funny thing is, that's kind of like my personality since forever. Is I always try to look for simple shit, and that's why I love this message. And I'll always be grateful that, you know, and you helped, like, you know, you're blowing up that the sugar and stuff. But I'm telling you right now, like that led to the raw fucking dieting message, and no one can fuck with this. They can't fuck with it because the meatheads can't fuck with it. Because it's like, oh, what are you going to build muscle faster on a fucking carnivore diet versus eating chicken breast and starch? There's no fucking way. Look at the guy. Like, the body composition experts are the fucking old school bodybuilders, right? So they win there. And then you got the women in the late 80s that were bodybuilding and they're fucking staying lean year round. Same fucking diet. It's always the same diet. It's always the same diet, just whatever your goal is. It's always a low-fat diet. Whether maybe there'd be some guys that want to bulk. How many people could I help that are like these, a lot of these natural lifting community too? I see these young guys, and they're like promoting to other young guys that are skinny, right? They're like, just eat in bulk. And they're eating trash and they're fucking gaining all that bad weight. And they're literally slowing their fucking metabolism down like crazy, giving themselves bad sugar, bad glucose tolerance. And because it still takes some work. And it doesn't take much work if you eat like a dog. Just go buy a bag of fucking rice and bags of fucking, just go buy oatmeal, rice, potatoes, and fucking chicken breasts and eat. And you don't got to eat a million times a day. They're naturals. You know, the only reason those big guys had to force feed, and that's where that came from. The reason those guys had to force feed is because they had so much unnatural muscle on them that they had to eat unnaturally and force in like a crazy amount of food, where nobody that's natural has to force feed like Jay was doing. They don't. They just got to eat their fucking, they do fine on 3 or 4 meal a day or 3 squares. Like, and if they're a big eater, perfect. They could even see wicked gains on a low fat, lean meat and starch on 2 meals if they fucking could just put food back. If that's their, you could argue that maybe the eating frequency being a bit higher or whatever, it doesn't matter, right? That's just preference, but the main message is fat rock the fuck bomb. You don't need a gram of fat added to that diet other than what's in that lean meat. And you always, if you're fat and you're really trying to lose weight, eat the lean protein till you're fucking done. And then vegetables, fruit, maybe like fructose. We still learn something about the fructose. You give yourself a little, my mentor there, he talked about that. That's one thing they were fucking up a little bit back in the day. They were scared shitless of all the fructose. Just a little bit of fructose will really murder that little bit of hunger that comes from not giving your liver that little bit of fucking like actual like simple sugar. You don't need much. And then, you have vegetables, fruit, and then your starch. And if anybody eats like that long term, they're getting lean.
Yeah, I think Milos was saying like about 20 or 30% of his carbohydrates came from like simple sugars.
Yeah. Man, like I'll tell you, fuck, it's funny because we found some old clips of Milos like back in the day when there was still, because like you said, I seen a video of him, a more modern one, and he was walking on eggshells a bit with those, like, the fats. And I've seen interviews with bodybuilders, old ones, when the fucking stupid fat craze started blowing up. And they literally, the interviewer was asking the bodybuilder, was like, I think it was even like Levrone. And the Levrone says to the interviewers, like, yeah, there's no fat in that diet. He's like, doesn't say it like with authority. He's like being a nice guy. Like Kevin's a pretty nice guy. Listen to him. He's like, yeah, there's no fat in the diet. It's just, I eat lean meat and starch. And, the same as with Jay. It's like, bodybuilders, we don't count shit. We just eat lean protein and fucking carbs and watch the fat, right? But then the interviewers like says to Kevin, it was like, yeah, but you get in your healthy fats, right? And then Kevin's like, yeah. You know what I mean? He entertained it. You know where I think that comes from? Because it's so pro-fat now, because all the bullshit. I think some of these fucking bodybuilding, especially the ones that have a presence on social media, they're scared to demonize fat because it makes them look radical. And that's where I come in, because I don't give a fuck about shit, right? So, you know what I mean? They're literally scared to say you don't need a gram of fucking fat in that diet as long as you get in your actual lean fish. Like the grams are talking is like in like single, like low numbers, right? It's like whatever's in the meat. That's it. You never had oil out in the nature. Like people just can't get this through their heads. Coconut oil, like how in the fuck are you gonna get coconut oil back like 300 years ago? If you burn 10,000 calories just cracking the fucking coconuts, Or like now, even when I was younger and you were younger, there's no shelled almonds and shit. Like all these people are like, oh, these healthy nuts. You had them at Christmas, you had to crack them with a fucking nutcracker. And you were lucky to even have nuts. There's no nuts out in nature out here. Those are special shipped, right? And then the fatty meat didn't exist. Like a fucking domesticated cow. A domesticated cow, if you throw it out in the woods overnight, it's fucking dead by wolves. Like, fuck off. Like, none of this fatty meat exists in nature unless you're in the ocean. And that's a whole nother thing, because now you're in cold water. You got like orcas that are eating like fucking seals and shit. Land animals, whole different conversation. And you can see with the lions and the carnivores on the land, they're all eating, it's all lean game. Lean as fuck. And anybody wants to argue that's just they're just fucking delusional. They're city slickers. They're fucking city slickers that don't know shit.
If somebody could think about some family members that they have, and they have, you see one, maybe it's like a niece or nephew or something like that. One niece is like heavy and the other one's not, and a lot of times they say, oh, so-and-so, unfortunately, they're a picky eater. That picky eater kid, probably he doesn't like fat. Like for whatever reason, the kid just, we're attracted to different things. We're attracted to different food. We have different personalities and different brain chemistry and all these things. But that you see that a lot within a lot of families where like one child is pretty heavy and the other one is like very, very thin. And what I've observed in seeing that, even within my own family, I observe that the kid that is thinner, he just naturally does not like fat as much. Whereas the other kid likes the fattier food.
Yeah, and there's going to be definitely some monkey see, monkey do there as well. But I know with my niece and nephew, like they're both lean, and I know for a fact with the fatty meats, unless there's salt there, they ain't eating it. They're not. A young kid, like I said, like a young kid will not gravitate towards fat at all. It's because a lot of times the kid's actually low on salt. So they gravitate towards the fucking bacon or the salty sausages because the salt intake. They won't eat that food without that salt, because fat tastes like shit by itself. It tastes like shit. And you know what? People that bring up, oh, what about raw protein? Well, I'll tell you right now, I've ate more raw steak than most people. And when you're hungry, it's other than, there's a little bit of a societal thing like in North America, but I eat a ton of raw fucking meat. I like it. In fact, the fucking cuts, the lean beef cuts, I like them raw better because they're actually more tender, right? Sometimes so it's not like weird, like it's just because of societal shit. But I'll always see kids, depends if they're in a growth sport or not, they will gravitate, they'll always, I did this, like, let's just talk about me. I remember perfectly, I get home off the bus, and my mom, like, we ate really clean. And it had been like chicken and like some sort of vegetable and a starch. And I'd almost always jump on the chicken first. I'd always get my fill in on that chicken. And then you probably clean the plate up. And then if you went for seconds, if you feel like you need more protein, you might get a little more protein. But then the seconds, a lot of time the seconds, if you ever notice people, if they're actually in tune and they're eating, and it's clean food, that's where they might grab some more starch to make up the calories they burned on the day because they hit that protein need. It's interesting if you took a kid and the kid only had choices of healthy, clean foods that we're talking about, you'll blatantly see the patterns. They'll go towards that protein, and depending how much they're growing or not, they'll get the protein in, and then they'll be done with it. And then they'll eat mainly the starch after a lot of times if it's clean. But now if there's a lot of, like that's where the taste buds and shit can get fucked up, right? Even with a lot of process. Me and you just pumped hardcore sugar for fucking 2 months straight. Fuck. Well, fuck. What do and the thing is, like, people aren't idiots. Like, for people, even myself, like, let's get fucking real. Like, obviously, there's a better food choice than fucking, like, wine gums, or a fucking Skittles and shit. People just fucking get crazy. Like, the internet's insane. Like, that's why I had to, and I didn't want to leave you hanging, right? I'm like, fuck. I'm like running and shitting on the sugar diet now, and Mark's still putting it on his fucking videos.
Well, I still think there's like some merit to some of what was in the sugar diet.
Oh, yeah,
I still think that people can eat sugar, and it's like have an apple, have some grape juice, have some
like the whole foods are
here and there.
Yeah, the whole foods are good. Like, fuck, there's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is the protein, because the vegans really started to infiltrate my shit too. And that's when shit got crazy with fucking, yeah, you don't eat it. I would even say that I was eating like some lean meat. And I'd have people like, Cole still hasn't caught the fucking memo. Like, like they're just trying to get you to not eat any fucking meat. Right. And the problem, and the thing is, some of them vegans will still be eating their protein subs and shit, but they won't even talk about that in their videos. Because as soon as you say you need protein, even if it's plant protein, most people take that as meat. And vegans do not want to promote an inch of a message that's going to have people eat meat. And honestly, if we're talking about a carbon footprint and shit, do you know how cheap it is to go hunting out where I am and get like a small fucking deer? Compared to shipping fucking vegan proteins and these exotic foods. You know how many of these foods are so exotic, like quinoa and shit? Fuck, there's no fucking quinoa around here. There's there's none of it. It costs a fortune. That whole carbon footprint thing. If you're living off the land where you live, like you're fucking eating so clean, right? It's clean. And then obviously the factory farmed animals are fattier than fuck. So yeah, I agree with them there. Because that's just, but don't get me wrong, we got to simulate an old school diet because most people aren't out hunting. So you got to simulate it. So when you go to the store, you're buying factory farm fucking red meat, but just you got to get the round steaks. You got to get the lean stuff. Like you got to get the lean fish.
I think it'd be cool to see you do a video talking to parents, about like sort of how to manage this diet for kids. I think that would be an awesome video.
Yeah,
I know it'd be many of the same things you're already talking about, but I think it would be cool.
Well, I think just getting the adults on point is going to lead to that, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you get the parents eating properly, and then it just rubs off on the kids. But, well, are we going to wrap her up?
Awesome conversation today, man. Thank you so much.
That was the best one I've done. That was man. This one, hopefully people watch this one. This is probably the best video. Hopefully you put a good title on it.
Yeah, 1990s.
1990s low-fat diet is back, baby.
Thanks, man. Have a great rest of your day, Cole.
You too. You have a good day. Thanks for having me on. Bye-bye.